All right, great pleasure joining me now, Kellyanne Conway, former counselor to President Trump, Fox News contributor, and author of the great book, Here's the Deal. Kellyanne, welcome back. I mean, you know, it's funny. A lot of articles about closing arguments. I really do believe it's the voters who are making the closing arguments. And in particular, I'm so interested. We know inflation in the economy is still number one. Mm-hmm. But it's like late closing, you know, it's like the last eighth of a mile in a horse race. Suddenly, crime and fracking has reemerged as big issues. What you think of all that?
That's right. Larry, I loved actually your opening arguments for this show today because you're on the side of the voters. The public have been very clear and transparent really for the last year. What's bothering them? What keeps them up at night? What do they wish that people in power would solve? And the problems, of course, begin with inflation. It was a conversation that started about gas and groceries 6 or 7 months ago, but now it's migrated into those car rentals, energy, the cost of tuitions, of the car payment, for example, and on it goes. But the reason that crime and fracking energy are in there as well is because people see them as quality of life issues. So certainly energy is a pocketbook issue. If you're in Pennsylvania, about 50,000 plus jobs rely on the fracking industry in some way, shape, or form, and it's billions of dollars, as you know. So when you have a sitting lieutenant governor who's standing up and saying, I want to be your United States Senator, and by the way, one of our major industries in our state, energy under our feet, is a, quote, stain on the state, people are going to look up and say, that's not right. You don't even have to be in the fracking industry. You know, politics, two things I'll say about politics that I think the Republicans have this time. One is politics is the art of telling people what they can't see, not what they can. They see that John Fetterman is struggling. They see that Joe Biden is struggling. They see that Kamala Harris fights that teleprompter daily, and the teleprompter always wins. But you have to tell them what they can't see, what they may not know about the records, the anti-fracking policies that Kathy Hochul is just like her predecessors, Spitzer, Cuomo. They won't allow us to develop energy here in New York. Remember the old stories, Larry, of you'd see the pickup trucks with New York license plates over the border in Pennsylvania looking for work. Yep. So people are onto that. And you don't need to be in the industry. Second point, you can be a direct stakeholder in something. So you're the coal mining household, you're the fracking household, you're in the union, you're the soccer mom. But in addition to stakeholders, there are what I call political shareholders. There are people who aren't necessarily affected by that straight on, but they care about people who are affected by that. And they're looking at that and they're saying, hey, I no longer have kids in the schools, but my goodness, you can't do that. You can't be telling them. Crime has never receded. All it's gotten is worse. And I think crime, even more than the economy, is the best example we have this cycle of the Democrats telling people, don't believe what you see with your two eyes. Believe what I say day by day. This White House, these Democrats seem to be the last people in the country who realize rising cost, rising crime are the two top issues going into the midterm cycle. They've been denying the whole time. And if you're denying, you're lying. You're telling people that what they care about isn't that important.
You know, it's so important. As a kind of subheading, Kellyanne, the trouble with Joe Biden, I mean, Joe Biden has a lot of troubles, blah, blah. I'll let him sink in his own troubles. But he will not tell the truth about these things. The facts on the ground or the kitchen table, as you say, the cost structure, whether it's home heating fuel or automobiles or food or whatever. And I think if you can't be truthful and no one believes you, then folks will say, well, you're not the guy to solve the problem, so therefore we must have change.
He's rarely accurate.
When I'm saying the voters are making the closing argument, I think to some extent, to a large extent, issue by issue, that's what they're saying. I don't know who they're in love with. We'll wait till 2024 is an awful long way off. But right now, everything's gone wrong, and they don't believe the guy. They don't have any confidence in him.
They have no confidence.
They're going to make a vote against him.
You're right. No confidence in Biden's competence. They don't believe he tells them the truth. And I think this hurt Fetterman in the lack of transparency and integrity, honesty, and humility. Larry, what you're saying is absolutely true. Voters are always smarter than these politicians think. And in addition to Joe Biden not being a unifier, not being able to cobble together bipartisan coalitions to get things done, not having us be respected around the world as a guy who had been in Washington for 50 years, vice president, chairman of the Foreign Relations, the main problem he has is that people don't think he's completely truthful. And in fact, the reason he's not accurate and honest is because he's never held accountable. There's a new, I'm going to post it to Twitter. I don't particularly like Twitter, but in celebration of what looks like Elon Musk buying it, I will post on Twitter an 8-minute series of lies that the two press secretaries and Biden and others have told. It's just not true. Inflation was not transitory. The border surge was not seasonal. Americans were stranded in Afghanistan, and so on and so forth. But if nobody's holding you accountable, and there's not a single Democrat who stood up this cycle and said, hold on, you're focused on the wrong issues. The person who came the closest to it was Barack Obama 2 weeks ago. He said on a podcast, I'm telling my party, stop talking about these other things and start focusing on, quote, kitchen table issues. Although he just got an ad in Pennsylvania where he talks about threats to American democracy and a woman's right to choose. Same thing he did for Terry McAuliffe a year ago. He went into Virginia, he said, I want to thank Terry for being strong on right to vote, climate change, and a woman's right to choose. They tried this a year ago. Now, if they're going to deploy Obama, who's got cachet, changing the messenger doesn't change the core message, which is the Democrats have created, Biden has created a parallel universe with Americans right now. Americans are flashing the neon lights. This is what I care about. Please solve the problems. And they keep saying those aren't really the problems. Yeah. Worst thing Biden has said in a while, which is saying something, licking that ice cream cone 2 weeks ago and saying
the economy
is hot as heck.
Right.
Hold on. The second thing he said was just as bad. He said, I'm not worried about ours. I'm actually worried about other countries. That's the opposite of America
That's
first.
right. No, that's exactly right. I mean, it's just people respect somebody, a leader, an elected leader. If you just tell the truth, we have a problem, or, you know what, this didn't work the way we hoped. I mean, look, Bill Clinton did that a long time ago, 25 years. But he won't. And because he won't, people are going to demand a change. I mean, I think these are the key issues. Let me just quickly, the numbers in the polls are looking good. Do you think we're in a two-house sweep situation?
Yes, I do.
You do?
I do. And if we're actually talking about New Hampshire and we're talking about the governorship of New Mexico and so on and so forth, New Hampshire, that's like the 53rd seat. So, yes, I think things are trending the way the Republicans, the fundamentals have always been there. And they've had great message discipline for once also. And we have this unusual situation, Larry, quickly, where you've got two former presidents, Obama, but particularly Donald Trump, who are very in demand on the campaign trail for their candidates. And you've got a sitting president who isn't in demand at all. And they can't even say to him, why don't you step aside and tend to our economy and national security, and we'll let your vice president go out there as the great, strong female leader that she is. They can't do that either. So they're not really welcome in many places. These Democrats made a mistake this summer voting for the Inflation Reduction Act. Yeah. They made a mistake voting for him 94, 95% of the time. We released a poll this week. We've got Patty Murray up to 6 points over Tiffany Smiley, and she's under 50, though. Her approval is 49, and her ballot position is 48. She won that by
cancellations was a mistake.
Big mistake.
Nobody
it's not fair. People
that.
say it's not
Unfair.
fair.
That's exactly
That's not
right.
fair.
It's costing us a fortune, and the have-nots are having to finance the haves, which is so bad.
And parents are still upset, and not just parents. What you said is very important. A year after Glenn Youngkin's answer to Terry McAuliffe saying abortion and Trump, he said education in Virginia, parents are still upset. In fact, non-parents are very upset because they went from saying science, keep the kids masked. We see the lost learning scores, Larry, but then they went right to the curriculum. Instead of saying, let's step back and put the kids first, they went right to the curriculum and tried to change that.
You've been in politics a while. I've been in politics a while. There's nothing wrong, honestly, with saying, okay, this didn't work out.
No, you have to
Let's
say that.
go to plan B, be honest with the people. We're going to get... He doesn't do that. I think that's one of his biggest character flaws.
I don't think he has anybody around him who tells him that. I mean, I think a lot of what was said about the White House we worked in is true of this one, actually. Who's telling him that's not a good idea, or you're down in the polls? How is he taking his 39% approval rating and going and campaigning in different states? You have to say, today's been a bad day, or this has been a bad week or a bad stretch for the home team. Instead, it's Putin, it's big oil, it's Trump, it's all these things, but all of his foils are all but gone. That's the problem for Biden. One
last one, quickly. Our former boss, he's been out rallying for his candidates all season long, in a sense. And, he hasn't been, they and their issues have been the issues, not his persona per se, despite what Biden has tried to do. But I am interested in Kellyanne. You know a lot more about this than I do. For the first time, Donald Trump's PAC is now putting money, cash, hard cash, on the line, America's devalued dollars, for these candidates. What do you make of that?
That's the right thing to do. Donald Trump is all in for these candidates. He was criticized roundly and royally early on for endorsing candidates. People said they're not electable, they can't win. He's going to have a lot to glow and crow about after this midterm election, where he's very in demand. He's still doing the rallies. He's doing a lot of teletown halls where he picks up the phone and talks to thousands of people at a time. time and say, go out and vote. That helped Glenn Youngkin last year, too. Go out and vote for my candidate. And then most importantly, I think now he's doing something a little bit different, which is he's writing a check, he's putting that money out. And people who gave to his PAC want that. They want to make sure that we have a free market, capitalist majority that is going to stop the crazy spending, keep our taxes low, and keep parents saying, I have a right to say where my kids go to school.
And produce more oil and gas, which we make the cleanest in the world so people can afford to heat their homes this winter. You know, he may have a very good batting average in these key races.
He's absolutely going to. And even those who say, oh, I don't want Trump again, which are very few in number, among candidates, they all ran on the America First agenda. They really all did. And that's the key. That's the key. Messenger is one thing, and he's the most compelling one. But message is what's so important. And look, those who are obsessed with Trump can't let go of that. He took himself out of the center and let the candidate shine with his help. Those who are obsessed with Trump derangement syndrome is a real affliction for which there is no vaccine or booster. They're going to have nothing to show for
Did you
this
say
election.
the America First agenda? We have to get Brooke Rollins. We'll start texting Brooke Rollins.
There you go.
Today. Kellyanne Conway, nobody better.
You're the GOAT, Larry. Thank
Nobody
you.
knows it better.